During last year's annual pilgrimage to PopCon in downtown Indianapolis, my daughter Marette and I struck up a conversation with an author who told us a memorable story of how an encounter with a rodent sparked an idea that led to a book series. And when he told that story, I knew right away we had to read those books. So we bought the first book of the series. It's called The Ghost in the Trees. And the author was even gracious enough to sign our copy of the book. Now, I also knew that I really wanted to have this author here on the podcast. So we agreed to schedule a time to have him come on this show. But then, like I said earlier, significant life events got in the way, and I didn't follow up with him for a few weeks. And then those few weeks became a month, and then a few months, and then before I knew it, I had unintentionally ghosted him. Now, when I realized it was time to relaunch this podcast, I knew I needed to have this author as one of my first guests. So I reached out to him after nearly a year of radio silence, and he kindly agreed to join me right here. He's the perfect first interview for this third season. And since you can meet him in Vendor Hall at PopCon, May 8th through 10th, well, that's just perfect timing altogether. So today's episode is a conversation with prolific author PC Nottingham. I say he's prolific because he's published 3 trilogies in the last 4 years, with even more books on the way. To put that in perspective, not counting the very rough draft that I finished last year of a novel, I've had a grand total of exactly, carry the 3. Add the 1, multiply by 2. Yeah. 0 novels published during that same amount of time. So I had to know, what is his secret? Fortunately, he revealed some of his tricks, and he also pulled back the curtain just a little bit about life as an author and a dad and a husband with a full-time job that is not writing. So I'm incredibly excited to share my conversation with PC Nottingham with you today. You can hear it all right here on the Matt Dan Toddcast podcast. Coming to you from behind the plastic MDT microphone, it's the Matt Dan Toddcast podcast. I'm your host, Matt, a guy with 3 first names who's just living the dream. I'm here with PC Nottingham, an author, and PC, I'm just really glad that you're here. We met at Indie PopCon in 2025, so just a year ago, and we're coming up on the next installment of Indie PopCon, and I just wanted to catch up with you and hear some of the cool stuff, or a lot of the cool stuff that you're doing, because I've looked into your writing career just a little bit after our conversation, and man, it's really impressive. So PC, why don't you just tell me a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. Hi. Well, thank you for having me. It's always great to be on a new podcast. So yes, I am PC Nottingham. I'm an author with 4 Horsemen Publications, and I've tried to write a little bit of everything so far. I've got an adult space opera, if you like your sci-fi spacey battles. I've also got a middle grade fantasy series that has no magic, and it's very much in the milieu of Redwall, if that was part of anyone's childhood. So it's all anthropomorphized rodents. So the first series in that little universe is the Ghosts and Iron series, which Matt read the first book of, and I just had the next series in that universe drop over the last couple of weeks, which is more of like a so Ghost and Iron is kind of reimagined ninja versus Vikings world, and this one is more of like a reimagined Crusaders kind of world, where we've got this holy war that's being fought over a tree. Two different religions want the tree. One sees it as something that is holy, therefore it should be left alone. The other group sees it as holy, therefore they should eat the olives that grow on it. So naturally, that causes some automatic tension between these two groups as they fight for dominance, and it's a ton of fun. And I have gotten this greenlit by the publisher. I am still in the early stages of drafting, but I'm working on my first YA fantasy series that has magic. Still working out a lot of the details, but the basic premise is that these are Neanderthals who have elemental magic based on their Myers-Briggs personality types, and they have no clue how it works. And they are so over reliant on this that they've never invented tools or anything.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so
Wow.
I'm trying to hit every different possible angle you can get, except romance. That's the one thing I don't really want to write.
I don't think I blame you.
Yeah.
That's its own well, it's its own genre. It's its own beast in and of itself, I would think. So as you mentioned, we purchased a copy of Ghost in the Trees at PopCon last year. I read it very quickly after the convention, and I loved it. It was great. And you mentioned a story, like the inspiration to what sparked the idea of the initial stories. Would you mind sharing that with us? I think it's a pretty fun story.
Yeah. I was outsmarted by a squirrel. I heard some squeaks in my basement one day when I was first like really thinking about maybe be trying to write books. And naturally I had to go investigate, and I looked in the utility sink of my basement. It was like, there's a squirrel in here. And I went back upstairs. I got my good for nothing dog, and he and I tried to trap this squirrel in a 5-gallon Home Depot bucket. And this thing was doing all kinds of parkour acrobatics, just evading us entirely. Really did not make me feel like I was at the top of the food chain. It really did not make me believe that dogs were bred from wolves, these apex hunters, because this thing was just flopping all around like a circus performer. And when I finally was able to catch it, I was so distraught about like, what do I do? So I, with a glove on, I got it in the bucket and I reached in to like throw it outside. And this poor thing I was scared to death. It wrapped itself around my hand with its tail, so it was like I had squirrel brass knuckles, and I just kind of had to fling it off, and it went into my yard, and it landed. It ran away. I didn't hurt the animal, and I was describing it to my wife, and I said that squirrel was just a little ninja. And around the same time, I had just discovered this YouTuber who just has a lot of fun videos about Japanese history, and he was talking about ninja in one of his videos, and he showed an image of a ninja sneaking into a fortress by making himself into a giant kite. And he just sailed over the wall of this fortress, and he looked like a flying squirrel. And also around the same time, there was this meme going around on the internet, like, could a samurai beat a Viking, or could a ninja beat a knight? And all those things kind of coalesced around the same time. And it was like, I got a really cool idea. yeah, and that was those things all together, along with my desire to start writing again. That was the birth of Risu the Ninja Squirrel.
Well, cool. Yeah, it's amazing how sometimes all these different uh, unrelated um, experiences can converge into one thing that sparks something pretty amazing and pretty fun. Well, I'm glad you had a squirrel invade you and give you the fits because it's a really fun book. It's a really great book, and I look forward to reading the rest of the series. And then the next. So, are you just going to do the two series in this world, or is this are
There's
we
a
expanding beyond that?
there's a third. So
Okay.
after my publisher and I talked about the Grove Guardian series, which is the Crusader style one. It's like I got another idea for my Gnaverworld universe, and my publisher was like, "You can't do more squirrels, PC." And I was like, "Okay, how about rats from Rome?" And then she laughed and was like, "Okay, fine." So the third series in the Neighborworld universe is like it's my internal nickname for it is the Rome Rats, but it's a reimagining of pre-Roman Spain around like the Punic Wars kind of era, and that's actually I just got that back from my editor and sent that back, so that is now getting typeset now.
Oh,
So
so we're far along in the
yes,
pretty good ways in the process.
yeah,
Cool. That'll be exciting. Yeah. So you have a separate day job, a 9 to 5 type of job, right? And you have a family, a young family, right? Uh, how do you do it? I've talked about it a few times on my blog, and I've mentioned it a few times on my show here. There is a story that I've had in my head for probably a decade, and only recently decided I've got to get this story out. Wrote a very, very rough draft. Finished it back in February of last year, and I'm telling you that was a chore. Finding the right time, finding the just making it all work. I can do blogs all day. I can do blogs in my sleep. I've been blogging for 20 years, right? And so I can write in 300 word chunks automatically. But this is a different muscle to begin with, is writing long form narrative and stuff, but just finding the time has been really a challenge for me. So how do you do it? Congratulations for doing it, by the way. That's amazing. But how do you
yeah.
how do you make it work?
So when I was younger, I wrote for fun, and I had a very long Dragon Ball Z fan fiction, and I had a very good English teacher in high school who was very pro write creatively, free write, and I never realized how much I owed him. And in college, a buddy I had in high school, and another guy who was a year behind us, who was still who was a senior. The three of us just kind of spitballed about like, what if we just made our own like literary blog? We just serialize some stories we've got in our heads, and we were like, yeah, that sounds great. And I was pretty adamant about doing it. I had a very dark and edgy story that was perfect for a 19-year-old guy full of angst. And everyone else kind of fell off. I was like, man, I really like this. And I kept going with it and made it into a full novel, and I was so proud of it. And I sent it out to a couple contests and just got crickets back. And that was a big like punch in the stomach. And then school got harder, and life got harder, and then graduate school came, and then finding a job came. And then that later, that same friend came up with his own Dungeons and Dragons legally distinct version that is not just a reskin of it. So it was like a sci-fi kind of thing that is legally distinct from Dungeons and Dragons. And we started a campaign, and I really liked my character. And I liked the first kind of missions we did. It really got me thinking about like what made this character tick. And then it's unfortunately a theme with this friend of mine. It kind of fizzled. I was like, man, I really like my characters. And then I thought, I have a job and my wife works weird hours. So there's like nights when I'm just by myself playing video games. I might as well do something a little more productive and creative. So I wrote a novel that would eventually become the garden of ideas that would later blossom in my sci-fi series, The Earthquake War. And I sent it to an editor. I found someone who would do like a sample edit of the first chapter. And this editor very politely and professionally told me it was trash. And because leading up to it, I had a couple people who were friends and family volunteer to read it because I was excited about it. And they all kind of said the same things like, yeah, I got to like page 50, but then, I'll get back to it. But it was always around like, and I was like, aha, I do suck. But instead of getting discouraged, the editor, who was very polite and professional, was like, hey, Brandon Sanderson has a YouTube where he has just recorded all of his lectures for free. Go watch every single one of his videos. If you're serious about this and you want to write what you want to write, watch every single Brandon Sanderson video you can. And I, as the kids would say today, I said, okay, bet. And I watched every single one of his videos. I started analyzing like why things weren't working. And I changed the name of that book to Learning Experience. And that psychologically helped me divorce myself from the feelings and the frustration around it. And I recommend that to everyone who is trying to write a book. Change the name of your draft to Learning Experience. Then you can be more receptive to people telling you what's not working, and you won't be so precious about it. And I found a free, or it wasn't free, but it was like a $30 class online for improving your writing. I was like, it's just $30, I'll do it. And the class kind of sucked. Like, you get what you pay for. It was, it was only $30, but one of the writing prompts in it was like someone watches a delivery in secret. And that was my first time writing the ninja squirrel who would eventually become Risu. So what would later become the first chapter of The Ghost in the Trees was a writing exercise from this class that otherwise was not very useful. And I said, I think this is gonna be it. But I realized that writing a story about ninja would require a lot more research. So that became what I would read in my free time. I wrote another draft that I also had to label Learning Experience. It was a idea for a comic that I had in college that I never got around to. I couldn't find an artist, but it's a guy who is partially possessed, who gets partial superpowers from a demon and goes around and kills human traffickers with a machete. And
okay,
yeah, because human traffickers are literal demons,
right.
And that's a cool way to and it was another one. I was feeling a little better about it. I realized where I had screwed up and what I had learned from the experience, but I knew I just still wasn't quite there. So I wanted to write something more lighthearted and something that would just be a little more fun. So I said, well, I've had this experience. I've got 2 failed books under my belt. time to go back to that ninja squirrel. And I wrote Ghosts in the Trees, and I tried shopping it around to agents and editors, and probably 9 months to a year, I was just getting no's left and right, because Redwall was in the 80s. It's not popular anymore. It wasn't having magic. There wasn't any romance that was like more steamy, because that's where YA has kind of been heading, and it just wasn't relatable. I also did not have a social media presence, which I had no clue was hurting me, but it really was. I'm sure there was a ton of agents who auto passed on me because I didn't have
because it wasn't there.
Yeah. Because my thought was, well, once an agent likes my book, then we'll figure out what my social media presence can look like together. We'll figure out what my pen name is and blah, blah, blah. But that was not the case. They needed someone who already had a platform. At least that's what they wanted. And I was so distraught over this, but I didn't want to give up. So I wrote something completely different. Not as dark as the partially possessed one, but more serious, that just had some moments of lightheartedness, and that was Mummified Moon, which was my first published book. It was the first book in the Earthquake War series, and the way I wrote that, finally getting around to your question of how do I write books so fast, those first three, Learning Experience 1, Learning Experience 2, Ghosts in the Trees, probably took me about 5 years, all told. But then with Mummified Moon, I now had a baby, and I had these times when I had to be awake to be ready to give a bottle. I couldn't sleep because the next bottle would just be an hour away. So I would decide I would use that time to write my book. And the way I wrote quickly, do not recommend this, but there is a website, I don't think it's up anymore, it's called Write or Die. And if you do not type fast enough, the screen turns red, it starts deleting your words, and it lets out a high-pitched squeal. So I would be writing this at 2 a.m. or 4 a.m. with a sleeping baby right next to me, trying to type as fast as I feverishly could, knowing that if I went too slow, not only would I lose my process, but I would wake up my daughter. So that taught me to write very quickly and to use the time I had planning to really plan, and to not worry about how pretty the first draft is. The rough draft can have typos. The rough draft is never going to be seen by anyone else except me. So the rough drafts can and should be rough. And that was something that was really slowing me down in my other things, is that I wanted everything to be perfect from the get-go. I wanted every sentence to be beautifully crafted artwork. I don't know about you, but I'm really bad at drawing. And when you watch someone draw, if they really know what they're doing, they are going to make lines that they will eventually erase. They'll make these guidelines softly just to get like the edges. And when you see an artist sketch, there's so much erasing. And as someone who is bad at art, like, I hated that idea of like, that makes it take longer. But now that I've done the writing version of that, I see the value in it, because it gives me permission to just run quickly through it to just get the feel of the story. And then if I get stuck on something, like I realize I need a new character and I need a name for it and I can't think of a name, I'll just put a bracket in there, name of old man, end bracket, and then just keep going. And then later, as I get to know who is this old man, what makes him tick, I can think about a name that might be appropriate or hilariously opposite of this person's identity and morals and stuff. And that has made a colossal difference. Just the push through the rough draft, and then when you're done, you can go more slowly now that you've got the whole story written, and then make the fixes as needed.
I think that's some pretty great advice. One of the things I've heard and discovered is when you're writing a draft for the first time is you do feel like, well, especially for me, again, hammering out blogs in my sleep, you just write it once and don't think anything else about it, and it's ready to publish, right? Because you self-edit the whole time that you're doing it, and you, especially if you're doing write or die, and you don't want to wake up your sleeping baby right beside you, I would think you would train yourself really quick not to self-edit. You just get that stuff out, and I've heard that several times that don't self-edit, just get it out, and I think that's pretty great. Great advice. I really like the idea. What did you title it? Learning opportunity.
Yeah, learning opportunity, learning experience.
Yeah.
Because then
I think that's great too.
The other thing that it never occurred to me was finding other people who were in my same spot of trying to write a book, because all the other people I was getting feedback from were my friends and family, who are deeply flawed because, one, they care about my opinion, and two, they are not writers or trying to be writers. Some of them weren't even readers. So their feedback, while I liked the compliments and I liked the support, it just was not what I needed. So finding other authors to form a writing group, that was the other major game changer. And knowing that I was just working on learning experiences made me a lot less precious about them saying like, well, this character is a little flat. If it's a learning experience, okay, great, let me dissect it. But if it's this thing I've held in my heart for so long and it's my sweet little baby, I'm not going to be as receptive to it. So getting that other feedback and then giving that other feedback as well, that also helped, because then you start noticing, oh, that's how I sound like. That's why purple prose is kind of an issue. This is I can break down why this isn't flowing well. It's because every sentence is like 6 words long and there's not a comma in sight. So that, with the push through the rough draft as fast as possible and then edit slowly, those I would say would be the big game changers. And so I finally was able to get Mummified Moon published in a way that is no longer available to people. So back before Twitter was turned into a cesspool, there used to be pitch contests where agents and editors would say, hey, pitch your book in a tweet and use this hashtag so I know how to find it, and if I like it, I'll reach out to you. And I had been doing that for Ghost in the Trees for months. Like every month there was going to be one. I would prep for it. I would make like 8 slightly different versions of the same pitch. And then I did that for Mummified Moon, just kind of on a whim. And my now editor found it. She was just looking through these for acquisitions and was like, yeah, send me the first chapter. So I was like, all right, wasn't expecting that, because I was not thinking that Mummified Moon would get published. I thought it was too weird, because it's sci-fi but also has like this cosmic Cthulhu kind of monster in it. And then the editor was like, I like the first chapter, give me the rest. And I was like, okay. And then a week later I got a email my inbox that we'd like to offer you a contract. And you mentioned like how I was able to.
That's great.
Thank you. You mentioned I was able to write books fast. Part of why is because while I was waiting for things to get picked up, I just kept writing both series, the Earthquake War and the Ghosts and Iron. I was just flipping between the two of them. So by the time one of them was done with my editor, I already had another two ready to go. So since then, my momentum slowed down a little bit. But yeah, I've got 9 that are out right now, and then another 6 in various stages of development on my publisher side, and then I'm working on the next 4 right now.
Wow. Are the next 4, are they all similar in genre, or are you branching out even more?
The 4 are the one that I was telling you about at the top of the pod. It's the Magic Cavemen.
Oh yeah. Okay. Cool. I working on 2 completely different themed novels. Well, I guess working on 2 that were the similar theme would also be difficult to juggle, right? Because you would think that, I don't know. The idea of writing those 2 series at around the same time just seems pretty impressive to me.
Thank you.
Congratulations on that as well.
Yeah, it's in some ways it's very good to like keep things feeling fresh. On the other hand, it does feel a little scatterbrained. But now what's nice is that I know like I'm promoting this, I'm getting ready for that, I'm working on this, and having that kind of rhythm works fairly well. The only time that it gets to be, I don't want to say problematic, but like just the last 2 weeks, I really hit my stride on these Magic Cavemen book, and I was so pumped. I was really in the zone. I was just the siren and the muses and whatever were calling me, and then I got emails from editorial, hey, Rome Rats is done, we need you to look through the books. Like, okay, so I gotta go through everything my editor said, like, oh yeah, comma does need to go there, okay, fine. I guess that ellipsis does not really need to be there, which is easy, but it's meticulous. And then I send it off, it's like, oh, you're already done, here's book 2. So little things like that might slow me down and break my rhythm a little bit. But my kids are getting older now. So I told my publisher I'm not going to be able to write 3 books a year anymore because they're not napping. The nap time was my primo get stuff done time. And my wife's work schedule changed, so she's not working nights anymore. And I don't want to be a bad husband and ignore her. And I was worried.
Pay attention to her.
Yeah, I was worried my publisher was going to be upset, and they're like, "Oh, thank goodness! Like we're having a hard time keeping up with you." It's like,
oh wow,
should have asked sooner.
I'm kind of curious with this publishing company. You come, I know you tend to come to PopCon and on the writers' row there. Do you have the opportunity to attend other conventions like that, or other things with other writers in your publishing group? I guess I'm just curious. Are you able to interact with them in a natural form, or have you even met? How's all that work, I guess?
So I've done PopCon with them, and that's been my main way to just interact with them. I have not done any other cons yet, mostly because I am very risk averse when it comes to money. I am trying to be, I need to be a good husband. I need to be a good father until the writing can pay the mortgage. I need to treat this as a hobby that is also kind of a job. So getting your own booth at a con is very expensive. And if you've got a crew to help you, okay, great. But if you're by yourself, that's quite a lot. So PopCon has been the one that's geographically closest to me. I'm out in the Great Lakes, that my publisher also has a presence at. I just don't know if I am ready, and I could be using money as an excuse. This could also just be my own emotional insecurity as well. But so I haven't ventured out past that, because I'm also thinking about just the cost of getting there with gas and hotel. And if I'm only selling X books, I can't really justify that to my family if I've got to be away from my wife and kids for however many days, because they're too old for naps, but they're still young enough that they can't be left by themselves. And I can't take them with me because I can't take them to some other like strange city to just do sightseeing, because they're not going to be having a good time just sitting in a booth for 3 days, and it's not fair to my wife.
And you wouldn't be having a good time either.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, that would show in how you interact with. I get it. That makes complete sense. Well, I'm glad you come to PopCon.
Yeah. Well, my older one is a teenager. I think she'll want to join, and because she's like that. Like, she would enjoy the art, but like, she's not old enough where I can just say, all right, honey, go explore.
Mm-hmm. So back to your writing process for a second. You talked about you would plan what you would write before you sat down to write. So
No, I am very much an outliner, partially so I know that I've got an idea of what's going on. But have you ever heard of some of the old writers who would do everything on a typewriter in this one long giant skin, and then they'd throw it away and start from scratch? I'm kind of like that with my outline. I will make the outline. I'll refer back to it for the first couple chapters of the book, but then I'm just going to start veering off. And
you just go with it.
Yeah. And I'll still generally keep it to make sure that the plot beats are hitting around the right time. So there's a plotting method called Save the Cat. I use that quite religiously. I'm also a fan of the hero's journey and what's called the Snowflake method. So I'll use the Snowflake method on my characters, and I'll use the Save the Cat for the chapter to chapter, and then I'll use the hero's journey for like the series. So my goal that I don't always hit is to be able to say the book in a sentence, the story in a sentence. So with Ghosts in the Trees, Ninja Squirrel versus Evil Beaver. For Mummified Moon, which is a little more plot involved because it's longer, it's a space opera. What I tell people is, in the race for the ultimate weapon, a space archaeologist discovers that what everyone thought was an ancient super weapon is actually a sleeping alien god of destruction, and it's waking up. So I try to have like two versions of the pitch that are kind of like that, where I can just give you a quick version, like Ninja Squirrel versus Evil Beaver, or even for Mummified Moon, if someone's in a real hurry, I would say Laura Croft / Indiana Jones versus Cockroach Cthulhu versus ISIS in space.
Nice. So yeah, some good comps there, like comparable stories there to share about what it's like. So I don't want to forget to ask, where can we buy your books?
Thank you. So Four Horsemen Publications is my publisher. They will give you the best deal most of the time, unless you've got a gift card somewhere. Four Horsemen Publications will probably be able to give you the best deal because that's them. There's no middle company to go through. They tend to have sales constantly. Stuff, especially like for pre-orders, different, usually every month has a different themed sale going on. But if you don't want to shop online, go into your local bookstore or even your local library if you're trying to save money. And if they don't have it, just talking to someone at the counter saying, hey, do you have this by so-and-so? I'm interested in it. And even if they don't drop everything and order it, the act of them typing the title into the computer is useful for the author because that information goes to whoever's in charge of purchasing, and it's like, this has come up quite a few times. All right, let's grab it. But obviously, if you've got a gift card to somewhere, go with that. But Four Horsemen Publications would be the best route to go, all other things being equal.
fourhorsemenpublications.com. Check them out. And there's a whole stable of authors there as well.
Good pun.
That fully not intended, but it works.
Yeah, we've got everything. And believe it or not, I'm not the only one with anthropomorphized animals as protagonists. One of the other authors, Nick Smith, he's got a more adult themed anthropomorphized animals stories. It's like a noir, but it's cats versus dogs. It's awesome and hilarious. And then we've got other stuff like fighty punchy robots. There's a lot of romance, a lot of steamier romance if that's your bag.
That's your vibe.
Yeah. There's kids stuff. They're sold separately from the steamier romance. And we've also got a lot of like technical books like world building and how to like research effectively. Yeah, there's everything under the sun you can imagine, and we are not billionaire owned, which is one of my favorite things about the company. And all the other authors are just regular people like me who have stories that they want to share.
That's one of the cool things I've liked about visiting the Four Horsemen Publishing table at Indie PopCon is it's clearly involved publishers that care about the craft and about the work, not just we all need to make money, right? But it's not just the billionaire money making scheme. And I really appreciate that.
The CEO and the other founders with her were all authors who just got fed up with the traditional publishing style. And that's why they named the company Four Horsemen, because they're bringing in the publishing apocalypse and they're trying to get authors free from the thumb of these giant companies that only care about the money and stopped caring about the story.
More power to him. Who's your favorite author other than someone from Four Horsemen?
Yeah. So right now I'm reading some Star Wars books. I generally, like, every other book I read will be a Star Wars book. Just because I'm a complex person and, but in between that, I'll try to do some nonfiction here and there, so history here and there. But in terms of another author that I really like, she is Scottish. I always mispronounce her name, so I'm just going to apologize. But N.C. Scrimgeour. She's got a space opera series. It's called Those Left Behind. And she's got a fantasy series that's inspired by Scottish mythology. So there's like magic pirates and there are Selkies and Selkie zombies. And it's really cool. It's called Sea of Souls. So definitely recommend checking her out. And N.C. Scrimgeour is just indie author. So so that's not me shilling more Four Horsemen people. She is totally independent.
Before we go, where can we find you online?
Sure. I am on a few social media places because I can't be on all of them. So I'm on Blue Sky. If you look me up, I'm at pcnottingham.bsky.social, or I'm also on Instagram as PC_Nottingham. And you can sign up for my newsletter. I'm not the most active about putting my newsletter out because I personally get annoyed by newsletters. But I do put one out every couple of months, so nothing too obnoxious. If you're not the social media type, you can also get some more of me on the Radio Free Write podcast. Every episode is original pieces of flash fiction by yours truly and some other authors near me. We write to a shared prompt and we talk about a lot of the stuff we covered here, just like craft of storytelling and what makes for something engaging. And it's, snappy pieces all under 1,000 words. So you can check me out there at Radio Free Write, wherever you get your podcasts.
Thank you for writing these books. And I look forward to reading more of them.
Of course. Thanks for reading.
Thanks for listening today. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite platform and go ahead and give this podcast a like too. I hear that does some good. You can find out more information and all the show notes for this and all of my episodes at mattdantodd.com.